Okay, this is the Chapter 6 review. First of all, we're just reviewing some things that we've learned in Chapter 6, everyone. So the first question says, solve using a graphing calculator. It got cut off when I copied it. But we'll take our graphing calculator. Now, if you're at home, you might have to go to desmos.com. But in here, what we're going to do, we're going to take our calculator. Everybody press the on button. Now, if you still aren't familiar with this, when you press the on button, look on my screen. I pressed this button up here. It turned red. And then I'm going to press number 1. I press the 1 on the screen. It says new document. If it says, do you want to save, say no. And then we're going to add the graph. Number 2, add a graph. So everybody should have this up there. And it says f1 of x. That just means y equals. It's the first equation. Okay? Equation number 1. So remember, on these, you have to have solved for y. So if it's not y equals, you're going to have to do a little work. So if you look at these, number 4 on here, you're going to have to subtract 3x to get y by itself. Number 5, you're going to have to subtract x to get y by itself. The rest of them are all, well, number 3, you're going to have to do quite a bit of work to get y by itself. So if you need help with that, you're going to want to ask. But this one, what we're going to do now is we're going to type this in. Negative x plus 3. We're just going to go in here and put negative x plus 3. Once you get that typed in, then hit enter, and it'll graph the first line. Okay, so if I hit enter, got the first line on there. Does everyone have the first line on their calculator now? Got it? Okay, now, how do I add a second line? I hit the button that says tab. Tab's over here on the left. And then it says, oh, F2. So I'm going to put the second equation. So we look, the second equation is y equals 4x minus 2. So we're going to type in 4x minus 2. And then we hit enter, and we've got the 2 lines on there. That's kind of hard to do. Still got at least one, maybe a couple without a calculator out there. It's kind of hard to do this without a calculator, we're realizing. Now we press menu, number 6, and then number 4. We're going to find the intersection. Now what we're going to try to do is put on 2 lines that surround the place where it crosses. So I'm going to click once. You can just hit enter here, and then you drag over, and it creates a grayed out area, and you got to get the other line so that you're past the intersection. Right now, I'm not past where they cross. If I go over here, am I past where they cross? And do you see the word intersection show up? Then click enter again, and you should find the answer. These 2 lines cross at 1, 2. That's all you have to do on those 6 problems. That's it. Okay. Well, that part's easy. That's the first 6. Now, I don't want you to do those right now. Now I want you to go to number 10. Okay? Number 10 has different instructions. If you look at the instructions, it says we're going to solve using a specific method. We're going to solve by substitution. So on the 4 questions here, 7, 8, 9, 10, you have to do it by substitution, not by graphing. Okay, so what does that mean? Substitution. I'm going to try to get one of the variables by itself. So I'm going to try to get y by itself. You might say, what's the reason you're choosing y? Y is pretty close to all by itself. If I subtract 2x here, I get y equals negative 2x plus 10. Now, y is almost by itself. I'm going to now go into the other equation. Into this equation, 4x plus 2 times y equals 35, and I took out the y. This method is called substitution. Substitution is like in a basketball game. If one player goes in, another player comes out. You take the player out, you put a different one in. I am taking out y. The reason I'm taking out y, I know what y equals. So I'm going to put this in here for y. The y came out, and I put in negative 2x plus 10. Now I'm going to try to solve this one. 4x minus 4x, I distributed, plus 20 equals 35. 4x minus 4x disappears. We get 20 equals 35. Since 20 doesn't equal 35, this one has no solution. Sometimes when you solve this, you get x equals 4. Then you put the 4 back in and you figure out what y is. Okay? So in problem number 10, that one has specifically no solution. That's solving by substitution. Hopefully you remember how to do that. Okay, now let's jump to the next section on the back of the worksheet, and we're going to look at number 11. One of the things we learned is solving by elimination. Elimination is where you stack them one on top of each other, try to get rid of one of the problems. So here, if we look at this one, the x's are the same. They're both 1x. But if I drew a line underneath and I tried to add them right now, 1x and 1x would make 2x. They wouldn't eliminate. So one of them's got to be negative. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the second equation and I'm going to multiply everything by a negative 1. I'm going to make this negative. I'm going to make this one positive. And I'm going to make that one negative. I multiplied each number by a negative 1. Now, if I stack these up, the x minus x, the x eliminates, it's gone. 2y plus 1y gets me 3y. 3 subtract 6 gets me negative 3. So what happened is we eliminated the x because positive 1x and negative 1x eliminate each other. We divide each side by 3, and we're going to get y as negative 1. And remember, we're working the same thing. What we're doing here is the same thing we did when graphing. We're trying to figure out where the two lines cross, but we're using a different method. These are going to cross where y is negative 1. What we have to find is also the x. So we're going to take that negative 1 and we're going to put it back in one of the equations. I'm going to put it in this one. X plus 2 times y equals 3. Y was negative 1. So x minus 2, because 2 times negative 1 is negative 2, equals 3. If I add 2 to each side, what do I get? X is what? Add 2. X is what? If I add 2 to each side, what do I get? X is what? 5. Thank you. All right. So, now the next section says solve by any method. So if you so desire, you could graph this one. If you want, you could use substitution. If you want, you could use elimination. If I have to pick, my favorite method usually is elimination. Okay? So this one, first of all, the second equation isn't in the correct form. I'm going to subtract 6y because you want it to be the x's, then the y's, then the equal sign, and then the regular number. We call the regular number the constant. Okay? Now, this one up here, there's a couple things I could do, but I'm going to take this whole equation times negative 2. You might say, why did you choose to take it times negative 2? If I take it times negative 2, I get negative 2x, and then if I put it underneath the 2x, it's going to eliminate those. So, negative 2 times x gets me negative 2x. Negative 2 times negative 3y gets me plus 6y. Negative 2 times 27 gets me negative 54. 2x minus 2x, those eliminate. 6y and negative 6y eliminate. So this whole side becomes 0. Over here we get negative 68. 0 doesn't equal negative 68. So this is another one that has no solution. Okay, so the goal is to finish this review. We're going to have a little quiz on Friday with this one.